Please welcome Meta's Open Source Ecosystem Lead and OCP's Incubation Committee Co-Chair, Dharmesh Jani.
Imagine making an inquiry that echoes through the generations, changing the course of humanity. 127 years ago to this month, on the campuses of Stockholm University, this brilliant scientist asked one simple question. Does the surface temperature of ground in any way depend on the heat-absorbing gases in the atmosphere? His name was Svante Arrhenius. And with this one profound question, he set the humanity on a path which in some small way has brought all of us here together. Good morning and welcome everyone to this OCP Regional Summit. We are back after 3 years and I'm delighted to be here. And what a week we have chosen to get together. This is Earth Week. So let's pledge to work together for a greener tomorrow. I'm also equally delighted to share the work of my colleagues at Meta. So without further ado, let's get started. Svante Arrhenius was also the first individual to propose the link between human activities and level of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. That was April of 1896. Generations came and went by without realizing that there were changes happening in the air they were breathing. It was not until late 1950s when one Charles Keeling started measuring carbon dioxide levels on top of Mauna Loa in Hawaii. His meticulous measurements lasted 30 years. Keeling curve, as they are known today, show a clear and continuous rise in carbon dioxide levels. These measurements continue to be taken well into 21st century, and the trend continues. 21st century was also the time when the world entered into the internet age. Many new companies were formed. Facebook was launched in 2004 with a mission to empower people to build communities and bring world closer together. Today, Meta products power 3 billion people on a daily basis to exercise this on globally. In the following year, Kyoto Protocol entered into full force, and then the world continued to work together, and in a historic moment, 196 countries came together in 2015 to sign the Paris Climate Accord. This decade was also a transformational decade for Meta. We started our sustainability initiatives internally, launched teams, and set milestones. All of this culminated into 2020 being a landmark year in the history of Meta. We achieved net zero operationally for the first time in our history. This was in great part by use of 100% renewable energy. This powers all of our data centers, and with over 8,000 megawatts of renewable energy portfolio, Meta has one of the biggest for any company. 2020 was also the time when we restored 5.8 million cubic meters of water. That is a lot of water. I was trying to get my head around it. And recently I learned some interesting statistics that Czech Republic is the #1 nation when it comes to per capita beer consumption. This amount of water can provide Czech Republic uninterrupted 4 years of beer. Now that is something we can say cheers to, yeah? 2020 was also the time when Meta announced its boldest goal of achieving net zero across all of its activities, scope 1, 2, and 3. And that's the destination we want to be mere 7 years from now. So that begs the question, where are we today? Let's look at our 2021 numbers. We are going to publish 2022 numbers in the middle of this year. In 2021, Meta reported 5.7 million metric carbon dioxide emission in the atmosphere. This includes all of its activities. But when you go and take a closer look, you find that Scope 3 constitutes 99% of the emissions which Meta has reported. These are the areas where Meta is working, and activities across all of these domains contribute to these emissions. And we expect these emissions to continue to rise going into 2030, perhaps 2 to 4 times what we have reported in 21. That is the challenge we have to address today. So what is our game plan to bring this number down to 0? Meta is a reduction-first company. What it means is decarbonization is the first lever we are going to use to bring the number down. All of you saw Scope 3 contributing the biggest chunk. Engaging suppliers is a very important component of bringing this number down. Whatever is left over, we are going to use carbon removal projects, and we hope to achieve net zero by 2030. All of these 3 ideas are being worked on right now. And I want to go deeper with you to see how and what we are doing in each of them, starting with decarbonization. Decarbonization has 3 pathways which we are working on. First, you start with consuming less. Next, you do a better design with circularity embedded in it. Third, you work on innovative materials and fuel technologies, and all these 3 combine to bring the number down. Let me give you some examples to relate to all of these things we are working on. All of these buildings we see, cement constitutes the biggest carbon footprint. Meta is working with new materials like clay, ash, powdered glass as a component of cement up to 20 to 30%. And what we are discovering is we can bring carbon footprint down by as much as 40%. That's a big reduction. Next, we are transforming all of our data centers, making them more circular, bringing more compute, and making them denser. Third, we are using generative AI technologies to look at new innovative materials to explore direct air capture of carbon. We are also looking at alternate fuel technologies to replace our diesel generators, which are powering backup power right now in our data centers. That is lever 1. Let's look at how and what we are doing with suppliers. We started a supplier engagement program. The first goal of this program was to work with our suppliers to get them to benchmark. What you cannot measure, you cannot control. So you have to start with benchmarking first. Once you do benchmark, then you figure out where you want to go and set targets. And then we work very closely with our suppliers to set the roadmap which intercepts with our goals. Our supplier engagement program started a couple of years ago. And in 2021, we had around 40 suppliers as part of that program. In 2022, that number went up to 116 suppliers. In 2024, we are expecting suppliers representing 2/3 of our spend as part of this program, or 80% of our carbon emission. The last lever I want to talk about is obviously carbon removal, and the philosophy here is very simple. We want to use nature-based, and we want to use emerging technologies. Whatever project we choose, it must satisfy each of these 6 criteria. First, it must be designed for permanent impact. No release of carbon allowed even after extended period in the atmosphere. Next, we want to work on these projects with communities, making sure that their ecosystem, biodiversity, and economics is maintained. Projects must demonstrate additionality, which must be measurable, quantifiable, and auditable by the third party. This is where we are working in terms of our strategy. However, we do have challenges ahead where we need help. There are several challenges we have to bridge. I shared all of these at Global Summit last year in October at San Jose, and because these are important, it's worth repeating them again here. I call them big, hairy, audacious goals, starting with embodied carbon in silicon. Silicon powers everything in our data center, from compute to networking to memory to even AI and machine learning. Understanding its footprint is a table stake. I talked about circularity in decarbonization process. This is important because when you extend the life cycle of the components and devices, you effectively net out and reduce your carbon footprint. Now, this is not only a technical challenge, it's also a business challenge, which requires us and all of you to work together to figure out how we create new business models. And last but not least, power usage efficiency is something we are all familiar with for measuring data centers. However, as I said, we have to measure what matters. Carbon is an important point we are optimizing, and that's where we have to come up with new measures. And all of these three things we have to do with collaboration in mind. And that's why I'm sharing all of this with you, because these are the challenges which we need to work together. So what exactly has Meta done on collaboration front? Actually, I'm very pleased to mention that Meta was the first company to bring sustainability as a strategic initiative within OCP in 2019. We proposed this to incubation committee. We worked with the broader community for 2 years to define, refine, create mission, create understanding, and in 2022, Meta was instrumental working with others to bring this as a top-level project. You can learn more about it. You can go to the OCP website. That's one area we are working on. I'm also very pleased to announce for the first time here, Meta has joined forces with IMEC out of Belgium. IMEC, as you know, Inter-University Microelectronics Center, does a lot of cutting-edge research on semiconductor processes, working with broader semiconductor industry. I mentioned embodied carbon in silicon is important. Actually, understanding carbon in the entire manufacturing process of semiconductor is important, and that's the goal we have here. We have joined the Sustainability STSS program. So that begs the question all of you must be wondering, this is great, what can I, sitting here in audience, do? Actually, we all can do a lot via Open Compute Project. So let me share with you one idea which you can all take with you and start participating as soon as you start thinking about it. We are launching a new work stream within sustainability project, and this work stream is going to address figuring out new ways to measure sustainability, understanding power telemetry into devices like server, networking switches, storage servers, and even racks, and then looking at carbon modeling, because that is important and that requires all of us to work together. It's not a problem which can be solved by one company alone. And I keep using word we. Who are the we I'm talking about? These are a set of individuals from these organizations who have come together. We are going to share more details about this particular work stream. We have an upcoming sustainability workshop in Portland, Oregon in July of this year. It's going to be both in-person and virtual. I encourage you to track details about that on the OCP website, and please join, either in person or virtually. I extend this invitation to all of you because we must do that for sake of pale blue dot. This is an image inspired by Carl Sagan. As Voyager was leaving our solar system outside the orbit of Neptune, late astronomer Carl Sagan requested its camera to be turned one last time to take a picture of our Earth. This is Earth from 6.5 billion kilometers away. It's a mote of dust hanging in sunbeam. This is the only place where we know life flourishes. From the simplest of the cell to the biggest of the blue whales. From the slowest of the snails to the fastest of the peregrine falcons and cheetahs. From the simplest clump of neuron in a jellyfish to the complex brains which we carry in our skull. Each and every living organism has right to this Earth. In this cosmic darkness, this is the only place where we know life belongs. So we must protect this fragile pale blue dot. For this is the destiny we all share. Thank you very much.